Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy Michael J, and I'm back again with another video, and today I'll be discussing my favorite movie from every year I've been alive, which means that I'll be presenting my absolute favorite movie from each year from the year I was born in 2000 all the way to 2020. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Starting off with the year I was born in 2000, I have Castaway. I remember watching Castaway for the first time back in 9th grade, and I kind of expected this movie to be a little boring if I was being honest. But after watching the whole entire movie, I just remember saying to myself, man, how wrong was I? Because it was just fucking brilliant. It has Tom Hanks as a FedEx executive who ends up in a plane crash which causes him to be stranded on a deserted island for 4 years. Despite being the only person throughout the majority of the film with the exception of a charismatic volleyball named Wilson, Tom Hanks did such a magnificent job of carrying this entire film with his astonishing performance. The movie just has such a great amount of drama that always keeps me invested with it from start to finish, which is why Castaway was definitely the biggest standout film for me of that entire year. For 2001, I have Shrek. This was an easy one because Shrek for me is just one of those movies that I just never get tired of watching. There's a reason why Shrek became such a cult classic, not just because of the story alone, but because of the way how it portrays fairy tales in such a creative way. The film has wonderful character development, an amazing voice cast, a great soundtrack, and jokes that are just downright funny. Overall, Shrek is such an awesome movie that still remains one of the greatest animated films of the 21st century. For 2002, I have Spider-Man. Now, this shouldn't be surprising because most of y'all know how much I absolutely adore the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. To this day, it's still my absolute favorite superhero origin story. And while some of the elements in this film don't particularly hold up, especially when it comes to the effects, it tells such an amazing story on how Peter Parker eventually becomes Spider-Man while honoring the original Stan Lee Steve Ditko comics from the 60s. It's filled with so many iconic moments, to the spider bite, to perfectly nailing the death of Uncle Ben with a huge emotional punch to the gut, and even the upside down kiss with Mary Jane Watson. It's a movie that will forever hold a special place in my heart, which is why it's unequivocally my favorite movie of that year. For 2003, I have Kill Bill Volume 1. Now, this was a tough one because 2003 had produced a shit ton of great movies that I loved. Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, X2, X-Men United, Finding Nemo, and even Holes. But eventually I ended up picking this classic that was directed and written by the filmmaking god himself, Quentin Tarantino. Kill Bill Volume 1 is such an astonishing martial arts film that not only respected so many other classic martial arts flicks, but it also elevated the genre as well. You have Uma Thurman, who makes such a badass female character as the bride, and she goes off on a quest to seek vengeance against a team of killers who not only left her dead on her wedding day, but also killing her unborn child. Sure, it's a film that seems a little over dramatic, but it's just filled with so many dazzling action sequences that are so well choreographed while also having great writing and great performances. For 2004, I have Spider-Man 2. This was super easy because Spider-Man 2 is not just my favorite Spider-Man movie of all time, not just my favorite comic book movie of all time, it's my all-time favorite film, period. I adore every single thing about this movie because it's everything of what I want in a superhero movie. It has a great story direction, a great character arc, it beautifully showcases the struggles of Peter Parker trying to balance his life as Spider-Man, a fantastic villain in Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus, and also amazing action sequences, especially the quintessential train scene, which is definitely one of the great action set pieces of any comic book movie. I pretty much attribute Spider-Man 2 to everything of what I am today. I can honestly gush about it all day, every day, like I already have in a certain video, but bottom line, Spider-Man 2, absolute favorite movie of 2004. For 2005, I have Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Most of y'all should know that I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and Revenge of the Sith is definitely one of my absolute favorite movies from the franchise. As it served to be a huge improvement upon Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones in almost every way possible, Revenge of the Sith was such an emotional roller coaster that superbly demonstrated the downfall of Anakin Skywalker and how it eventually becomes Darth Vader. I really love how Revenge of the Sith feels so unique from any other Star Wars movie due to its dark tone, along with having such an engaging story to it. And while it's not a perfect movie, because I do feel like some of the aspects come off to be a little too campy, but I feel like the campiness of the film is kind of what makes it so special. Plus, it also features what many people argue is the greatest Star Wars lightsaber duel of all time between Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. For 2006, I have The Departed. Now, most of y'all should know that I'm a huge Leonardo DiCaprio fanatic, and this is probably my favorite movie directed by Martin Scorsese, along with Wolf of Wall Street and Taxi Driver. You have DiCaprio as a cop pretending to be a mob member, and you have Matt Damon as a mob member who pretends to be a cop. The film is packed with such a phenomenal supporting cast of actors, from Jack Nicholson as a mob boss, Martin Sheen, Vera Farmiga, Alec Baldwin, and even Mark Wahlberg, who even received an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor, which made a lot of sense because his performance in this film is just great. Scorsese crafted this movie that really makes you question about the manner of loyalty and identity, with so many twists and turns, incredible dialogue, and sequences that always has me at the edge of my seat is what makes The Departed such an exquisite movie that I highly recommend this to anybody who hasn't seen it yet. For 2007, I have I Am Legend. Now, I strongly consider putting The Bourne Ultimatum because that's like probably my all-time favorite action movie, but unfortunately, I had to go with I Am Legend. In this post-apocalyptic movie based on a graphic novel, it has Will Smith and his dog who are the only sole survivors living in New York City, and he struggles to find a cure to a global virus responsible for mutating most of humanity into these like nocturnal zombie creatures. The film has multiple flashbacks on how the character lost his wife and his daughter, along with that heartbreaking scene where he had to kill his dog after being bitten by one of those zombie dogs. And while sure this film had quite of a disastrous ending with Will Smith sacrificing himself, which pretty much ruined the whole entire concept of the movie, but despite all that, Will Smith really showcased how he brilliantly carried this entire movie in this sci-fi thriller. For 2008, I have The Dark Knight. I mean, what can I say about The Dark Knight that hasn't already been said? Arguably the greatest superhero movie of all time, but not only that, it's one of the all-time greatest films, period. This was the film that changed the superhero movie genre forever because the way it set a new standard for how you make a superb comic book movie. The film really demonstrated the brilliance of Christopher Nolan as the director because the way how it's not just a comic book movie, it's also a crime thriller as well. Merely everything about this movie is just pure perfection, from Hans Zimmer's amazing musical score, the story direction, and especially the performances. Most notably, the late Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker, who was so damn good at like playing this deranged, unpredictable villain with memorable quotes. Some may call The Dark Knight overrated, but overrated or not, this film still remains a classic 12 years later. For 2009, I have The Hangover. At a time when comedy movies were like at an all-time high during the 2000s, The Hangover was the one that really stood out to me. It's one of those few comedies with a juicy concept that makes full use of its premise. It's all about four best friends who throw a bachelor party in Las Vegas, and everything just goes completely wrong when the groom goes missing and his friends have no idea where he's at. The on-screen chemistry between Zach Galifianakis, Bradley Cooper, and Ed Helms was just absolutely spot on because they made such a dynamic trio. Plus, I can't forget to mention Ken Jeong, who makes such a funny-ass villain in Mr. Chow. For 2010, I have Inception. This has to be my absolute favorite movie directed by Christopher Nolan along with The Dark Knight. Inception is such an incredible heist flick that not only takes you on a ride by exploring dream worlds, but also playing with the nature of dreams and reality as well. It features all the exciting set pieces of a blockbuster with a great complex story, jaw-dropping special effects that look incredible, and it's packed with such an extraordinary cast of amazing actors. Inception is truly a wonderfully crafted film that is so creative and so unique, which is why I consider it a visionary masterpiece. For 2011, I have Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. For somebody like me who grew up watching and loving the Harry Potter movies, Deathly Hallows Part 2 was such a bittersweet ending to the entire franchise. Now, we all know that all great things always come to an end, and this movie really delivered on that in terms of the payoff, the emotion, and the action. It really marked the true end of an era because not only did it represent the end of Harry Potter's journey, but also his lifelong burden to defeat Lord Voldemort. During the Battle of Hogwarts, it's not even just Harry alone who gets a taste of glory. Some of the other supporting characters get their moment of victory as well, which really gave this movie such a great feel of satisfaction. Which is why Deathly Hallows Part 2 was such a superb conclusion that put an end to the entire Harry Potter franchise in epic fashion. For 2012, I have Django Unchained. Django Unchained is a movie that I know is highly controversial, but controversial or not, that doesn't stop me from loving this movie. In this Western film, you have Jamie Foxx as a slave who forms a bond with a bounty hunter who is wonderfully portrayed by Christoph Waltz, and they go on a journey to rescue his wife from a cruel plantation owner. As you'd expect from a Quentin Tarantino movie, the movie features brilliant dialogue, explicit violence, and amazing performances. Plus, it also features Leonardo DiCaprio, who made such a cruel villain as Calvin J. Candy. For 2013, I have Wolf of Wall Street. I'll never forget watching Wolf of Wall Street for the first time and just literally crying of laughter. Like, it made me laugh so fucking hard till I nearly pissed myself. The film tells the true story of Jordan Belfort and his career as a stockbroker from his meteoric rise to his eventual self-destruction. And Leo's performance in this movie is just absolutely magnificent because he brings so much charisma to the role. I can really tell how Martin Scorsese really pulled all the tricks out of his cinematic toolbox because almost everything about Wolf of Wall Street is just no holds barred. From the inspirational pep talks, wild parties, excessive drug use, a lot of F-bombs, and especially a lot of nudity, because trust me, this movie is filled with a lot of nudity. It's a film that I always have a good time rewatching. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to go watch it right after I'm done with this ranking video. For 2014, I have Big Hero 6. I love Big Hero 6. Without a doubt, one of my absolute favorite animated Disney movies, and if you ask me, I think it's way better than Frozen. Big Hero 6 is the perfect combination of sci-fi, superhero, family, and friendship. Plus, it has Baymax, who's just like one of the most lovable characters that Disney has ever created because he was such a delight that I myself want to have a giant squidgy friend like Baymax myself. The film has so many great themes, emotional storytelling, it's filled with so many moments that make me cry, as well as having some pretty good humor. For 2015, I have one of the most criminally underrated movies of all time, Dope. I'm pretty sure this is a movie that most people have never heard of unless you watch Netflix a lot, but god damn it, this is a film that I just absolutely adore. It's such a great coming of age story that people like myself can resonate with because it just hits me on so many different levels. It has spot on humor, gorgeous cinematography, an amazing script, and a stellar cast. This film is kind of like what you get when you have a Quentin Tarantino, John Hughes type of style to it, along with having like a little bit of Dave Chappelle humor that just blended so perfectly. Dope is just such a fantastic movie that just beautifully managed to be a powerful statement about race and also not judging a book by its cover. For 2016, I have Captain America Civil War. Now, way before you had Infinity War and Endgame, Captain America Civil War felt like one of the biggest films out of the MCU. With this being the third installment in the Captain America trilogy, it's all about the clashing ideologies between Captain America and Iron Man. The Russo brothers did such an incredible job of crafting this film while also making you choose carefully of whose side you want to be on, because both of them make very valid points while also having their faults on their side, which makes the conflict between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers even more compelling. On top of that, Civil War has some of the best action scenes that you'll ever see from the MCU. For 2017, I have Get Out. While there are other films that I could have chosen for this year, such as Blade Runner 2049 or Logan, since both these movies were absolutely tremendous, but when it came to Get Out, I don't think anything came close to it. It was the most talked about film of 2017, and for good reason, because it had a great way of being a horror film while also being a psychological thriller. Get Out had a great way of demonstrating racism at its most privileged and the dangers of interracial dating. It's only been out for 3 years, and it's already become a classic due to the amazing performances led by Daniel Kaluuya, and especially the amazing screenplay by Jordan Peele, which earned him an Oscar. For 2018, I have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse was one of the biggest surprises of the decade for me because I didn't expect it to be as great as it was. It's such a fantastic animated movie that brings the character of Miles Morales to the big screen for the first time, along with having such a moving story about heroism, friendship, diversity, and family. The film had such a distinct way of blending CG animation and 3D animation, which made it look visually stunning, a killer soundtrack, and a brilliant voice cast. Spider-Verse is a movie full of heart, and it truly understands what makes Spider-Man not only just a great character, but also an important one. For 2019, I have The Irishman. While there are other movies that I could have chosen for this year, but when it came to The Irishman, this is a film that I've always wanted to see, with having the three acting gods, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci. Like, need I say more? With this film having such an impressive de-aging CGI work, the three acting legends give great performances, especially De Niro, who plays Frank Sheeran, who goes from being a truck driver to being a mob assassin. And while sure it may feel a little too long due to the movie's runtime being a total of over 3 hours and 30 minutes, but if you're a fan of Martin Scorsese's work like me, The Irishman is definitely worth the ride for his storytelling that will take you back to his classic films like Goodfellas. And for 2020, I have Bad Boys for Life. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I remember how psyched I was when I heard that Bad Boys 3 was coming out, but if I was being dead honest, I kinda expected this film to be decent. But after watching it the first time, I was so surprised of how good it was. It was way better than I expected it to be, and if I'm being dead honest, I think this is probably the best of the Bad Boys trilogy. It has a great story direction, great character arcs, the stakes feel real, pretty stellar action scenes, and it probably has the best villains out of the trilogy. The film has such a real emotional core to it, and plus the chemistry between Will Smith and Martin Lawrence is way better than ever. And for all those reasons is why I think it's undeniably the best of the entire Bad Boys movies. And that's my list. Thank y'all so much for watching. Really hope y'all enjoyed this. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for weekly videos. I'm your boy Micah J, and peace.